The Teen Titans have a hero on that team known as Aqualad, Jackson Hyde. Many of you know him from the Young Justice universe, and in the comic books, he really wasn't that significant. But since Young Justice Season 3 is coming out, I feel that the overlords over at DC and Warner Brothers decided that he needed to be included on the current Teen Titans team. But who is Jackson Hyde? And how is he related to his father, or the villain Black Manta? All of that is revealed today. In the Hyde residence in New Mexico, Jackson's mother, Lucia, frantically calls Jackson's phone over and over, hoping that he would just pick up. As she hangs up the phone from her last attempt, she watches the news and sees a report of how the Teen Titans stopped King Shark. And up there, standing with Robin and the others, is Jackson, her son. Elsewhere, Jackson makes his way down through the street and kicks the top of a fire hydrant off, creating a pillar of water. Just as he puts his hand into it, Ra's al Ghul leaps at him, asking if he really thinks that he can stand a chance against him. No one has. Jackson throws out his arm, causing the water to cover Ra's, telling him, maybe I was a no one, but now I'm a little determined to make a splash. With water filling up Raz's lungs, Damian shouts out, no, no, no! Don't kill him! Detain him! Then the surrounding area begins to fade away, and Damian walks into the training simulator, stating, we don't kill! This just shows how vulnerable you really are. Damian goes on telling him that Kid Flash was vulnerable too, and Deathstroke took advantage of that. Because of it, it put the team in danger, which is something that won't happen again. Damian then places his hand over a pack, stating that hydrokinesis is sloppy at best. This bladder unit should help. Jackson picks up the backpack, telling him that can they not call it a bladder unit? As Jackson pulls the two hilts from his back, he creates two swords made out of water, and Damian tells him, you can get creative, but ideally, you won't ever have to use it. It could become just a crutch. Jackson then says, like Dumbo's feather? And Damian tells him, I wouldn't know. I don't speak Disney. Meanwhile, somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, Black Manta sits on his ship watching the news on the Teen Titans, and he sees Jackson. He looks at the screen, stating out loud, she thought I wouldn't find out. That she could keep him a secret. This boy changes everything. Over at Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, some of the city dwellers stop by the waters to see the seals when a little girl notices Jackson walking on water. He mutters to himself that he doesn't want to see his mother, and now she's seen him on the news. Maybe he can actually get some of his questions answered. The little girl calls out to Jackson, shouting, Hi, hero! Jackson looks over at the girl and he waves, thinking that he'll finally find out who he really is. And as soon as Jackson walks into the restaurant, Lucia runs over hugging him, and Jackson tells her he's fine. She doesn't need to be worried. She says that he doesn't know the first thing about worry. She has a garbage truck of worry that she can unload. The two take a seat and Jackson says, all right, tell me, am I Atlantean? Who's my father? Lucia says that he doesn't want anything to do with him. Nope, never, not gonna happen. She's not going to tell him who his father is. Jackson stops her, telling her, you promised. But Lucia tells him, your father's a bad man. And that's not being dramatic. He would kill both of us if he knew about you. Lucia holds out a glass of water, telling him that he's been so focused that his father is the reason that he can talk to water. But really, don't underestimate dear old mom. As the water pours out, the liquid begins to flow and change into a figure. As she finishes telling him, we have a lot more in common than you think. Jackson stares at the water, asking, why? You made me feel like such a freak. Lucia continues, telling him that it's the same reason they moved to the driest corner of the country, and that necklace, no matter how well she hid it, it would always seem to find its way back. While Lucia talks, Starfire radios to Jackson, telling him that there's a bank robbery in progress, and they need his help. He gets up and he runs out of the restaurant, and as she chases after him, he yells back that he has to go. Over at the Mission District, a pair of robbers flee from the bank when a giant green tail slams down on the front of their car. Gar begins to chew on the car, asking, and while Starfire holds up a cell phone recording the action, she says that it's difficult to understand what he's saying with a car in his mouth. Gar spits out the car, telling her, sorry, I was asking, did you get that? But as Starfire and Beast Boy begin to clean up, a sewer lid shoots out of nowhere and Jackson jumps up shouting, I'm here! Gar points at the bad guys, stating, as you can see, Squirt Gun, everything's under control. And Jackson shouts, you should have called me sooner! I'm no Kid Flash! He then takes one of the Hydro Swords and cuts into the lamppost, and Starfire asks him what's wrong. He tells her that sometimes you wish so hard for something, and when you get it, you realize that it's not what you wanted at all. Along the San Francisco Bay, Lucia looks at the Titans Tower, sighing, telling Jackson that if he just knew how lucky they were to be alive right now. And that's when she hears a splash and a voice telling her, it's been a long time. There's so much to catch up on. She forms an axe of water, swinging back, shouting, monster! And as Manta leaps out of the water, she yells, stay away from my son! As the two of them fight, Manta tells Lucia that she betrayed him, and then he cuts into her shoulder, telling him, "Tell me where the boy is." And then Jackson's voice calls out to Manta, telling him, "Don't you touch her again! Don't you dare touch her again!" Manta looks at Jackson and says, "That's no way to speak to your father." And Jackson then suddenly stops. Lucia tells him that she's so sorry. She wanted to protect him from him. Jackson lunges at Manta, and as he does, Manta takes the side of his harpoon and cracks it on the back of Jackson's head. Manta then takes the spear, holding it to Lucia's face, and Jackson shouts, "Wait! If it's me you want, then I'll go. Just let her go." Inside of the tower, Damian speaks with his father, Batman. And as Batman tells him that he would like them to have weekly briefings about what's going on, Damian tells him, "Actually, I wanted to talk about something else. Just like the Justice League delegates responsibilities and holds its members accountable." Batman tells him, "We'll talk about it this weekend, but for now, I have to go." Before Damian can tell him to wait, Batman ends the call, and then a cough can be heard. Damian spins around shouting to Raven, asking her, "How long have you been there?" And she tells him, actually, she's here to talk about Wally. Damian tells her, "He's off the team. There's nothing to talk about. When he entered the time stream to rescue Deathstroke, he could have destroyed the multiverse, all for murder." If you're wondering about that storyline, I will link it down below, but it's the Lazarus Contract. As Damian storms off, Raven tells him that he can justify his actions all he wants, but she knows that he regrets it, which is why he's so hard on Jackson. Damian turns to snap back, but then Lucia pulls herself in, bleeding on the floor, telling them that they need to help Jackson. Somewhere out in the Pacific on Manta's ship, Jackson tells him to take his helmet off and look at him. His whole life has been him blaming his mother for keeping him hidden, and now he gets it. She was afraid. But for him, he's not afraid, he's ashamed. Manta walks over with a knife, telling him that his feelings are irrelevant. The only thing that matters is this, and then he snips off the seashell necklace. Jackson asks what he's even talking about, and Manta holds out the shell, telling him, "This is no mere necklace, it's a map." The image of a location in the ocean then appears, and Manta explains that this was a map from the pirate captain, Madame Longrock. The surface world and Atlantis worked together to bring a war to her, and when she knew her time was coming, she hid the ring. The hidden location was in Zebel, the interdimensional aquatic prison that many know as the Bermuda Triangle. Getting into Zebel took everything he had, and once he got inside, he needed a guide, Jackson's mother. Over at Titan's Tower, Lucia is telling the same story to the others, explaining how she longed for a life outside of Zebel, and that's when she met him. Black Manta was a man on a mission, and he promised a life together once he was finished there. At the time, she knew his intentions were not for her, and she ended up trading out the shell map with a fake. Though he left not knowing that she had the real necklace, he also didn't know that he left her with an unborn child. Back with Jackson, he stands with Manta at their destination, asking, "What is it with old maps saying things about uncharted territories?" And he says, "Beyond the reaches of any map I've ever known, here be the dragons." Manta then cuts Jackson's rope, telling him that he can try to escape, but he won't last long. The two of them then jump into the water, and Manta says, "My father and I used to hunt for treasure. It was my lifelong dream to find the Black Pearl. However, while my father wanted it for fortune and glory, I always wanted it for different purposes." Jackson then asks what happened to his father. And after a moment of silence, Manta tells him, "Don't bother trying to get close to me. I have nothing to give you." Jackson tells him, "Fine. I'll talk. I play soccer. My favorite subject is math. My favorite band is A Tribe Called Quest. And I'm gay." The two continue to swim, and Manta says that he thought he was asking a question. "Do you really think I care? You're all just meat." And while the two of them swim, a large eye opens up looking at him. Before the two of them is a glowing chest, and Jackson asks him, "Is that it? Did we just swim in and swim out? Shouldn't this have just been harder?" And just then a giant octopus arm reaches out, grabbing Jackson and bringing him to its mouth. As Jackson is pulled away, the skull mouth containing the Black Pearl shuts, and Manta looks back. Before the giant sea creature can eat Jackson, he fires a beam into its arm, holding him, and he shouts, "Fight with me, son!" Manta then throws his spear into the creature's eye, and Jackson cuts himself free. Jackson says that he actually came back for him, and while Manta is grabbed, he shouts, "Don't talk, just fight! Blind to the other eye!" Jackson cuts the arm off that grabbed his father, and he asks, "How exactly am I supposed to get close enough to do that?" And Manta tells him, "You're thinking too small. Understand your gift. The whole ocean is a weapon." Jackson begins to focus his strength, and as his eyes begin to light up with lightning, a giant electrical spear shoots out, piercing the creature's other eye. The creature starts to sink down below, and Jackson tells him, "Can't believe it. This never happened before." Manta tells Jackson, "You have much to learn about the depths of the ocean and the potential of your powers. I can teach you about power." He then points to the skull and he tells him, "Open it." And Jackson tells him, "How? Isn't there some kind of cursed booby trap thing?" Manta kicks Jackson across the face and he begins to beat on him, telling him, You would have died back there if it wasn't for me. Now do as I say. With that, Manta throws Jackson back into the mouth of the skull, slamming him into it, and the mouth slowly starts to open. Manta swims over, pushing Jackson away, telling him, only a child of Zebel can unlock the seal. Jackson then tells him, the only reason you saved me is so you can use me. And Manta asks if he really knows what it feels like to find something you've hunted for your entire life. He holds the ring up and Manta shouts, it's empowering! The two swim towards the surface, and Jackson grabs his swords, telling him, I thought I needed my father to know who I was, but I didn't. Jackson swings down, and Manta drains the water from the swords and knocks him down onto the rocks. As Jackson struggles to get back up, he says, if there's one thing that I've learned, I can now see what I would have become if I was someone poisoned by hate. Manta tells him, you will learn to keep that mouth shut. And then a voice shouts, but I won't. Gar jumps out of the water as a shark, telling him, I'm kind of known for my big mouth. And he chomps down on Manta. The other Titans start to make their way down, and Jackson says that they shouldn't have come, and Damien tells him, it's nice to see you too, Squirt Gun. Jackson goes on telling him, you all don't understand, he'll kill you all. And just then, Gar's body floats to the surface. Damien looks at the body and he says, there's no way that he could have drowned. He wasn't down there long enough. And Jackson pulls Gar out and begins to pull the water out of his lungs, telling them that Manta weighed him down in the water, and now he has the Black Pearl. The whole ocean is his weapon. Just then, Manta leaps out of the water, washing everyone away, telling Jackson, you don't belong with your weakling friends or your coward mother. You belong to me! While Manta focuses back onto Jackson, Starfire blasts into the wave, shouting, Jackson is not yours to claim. Manta creates a wall of water, stopping Starfire's attacks, and then he forms a whirlpool, sucking her down, asking, where could this girl possibly lead you but down? As Raven fights back, Jackson tells her, you need to teleport us away. And Raven says, no, turn that fear into rage and fight. Manta releases another barrage of attacks, telling Jackson that this is his last chance. Join me or die with them. Damien pulls himself up, holding onto his arm, telling Jackson, since you joined the tower, you've been ready. Now it's time to prove it. Join the club of kids who have world-class psychos for fathers, and just keep fighting. It's what the Titans do. Jackson looks at his hands and he asks, how can he? Manta has the pearl and he's lost his swords, and Damien says, think back to what you said about Dumbo's magic feather. Manta might need the pearl, but you don't. As Damien's words ring through Jackson's head, he jumps forward at Manta, and just as Manta catches him, he electrifies the water all around them. The shock runs through Manta's body, and then he falls into the water. Jackson quickly jumps in after him, and he swims towards Manta, holding out his hand. Manta reaches up, and Jackson grabs his wrist, and then he pulls the ring off, telling Manta, I have family now, and I never want to see you again. Later, back at the Titan's Tower, Tempest stops by, asking Jackson, what does he think about the title Aqualad? Jackson says, honestly, it feels like someone else's name, and it's kind of lame. Tempest tells him that he's been called it for years. Even if it sounds a little goofy, you've earned it. Jackson tells him, yeah, it's a lot goofy, and Tempest tells him it's a rough translation from Atlantean. It means son of the seven seas. I've come to love it, and I trust you will too, Jackson. As the two walk back towards the tower, Tempest goes on telling him that he's sorry that he couldn't have come sooner, but it looks like they really didn't need his help anyway. Jackson looks back at the Black Pearl and he asks what's going to happen to that, and Tempest tells him it's going to be hidden somewhere where there won't be a map. As the two turn the corner, Jackson sees the rest of the Titans standing there with a cake and a sign that says, welcome to the Teen Titans, Aqualad. While everyone enjoys the party, Gar puts his videos up on YouTube, and a voice looking at the screen asks him, really? You're a fool. And the second man looks closer at Gar and says, yes, that's what makes him perfect. And there you have it, the origins of Aqualad and his relationship to Black Manta, and Black Manta becoming like crazy all-powerful. Loved this story myself. The Teen Titans books for me are kind of up and down. Some are amazing, some are just kind of subpar. This one for me I felt was a really strong story, as it did a lot more background on Aqualad. Now let's see what they're going to do next, because I believe it's tied into the DC Metal event. Anyway, if you want to keep up to date on DC Rebirth or anything going on in Marvel, subscribe to this channel. You can find that link down below. We can also chat about your favorite comic books on Twitter at Comicstorian, and if you click right here, you'll have another DC Rebirth playlist, while over here, you're gonna find something recommended by YouTube. Thank you, and have a good night.